Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Me again, Shannon Fox here, Devoted Patriots 2 channel. I got a couple lots of news for you today. There's only two main kind of stories going on this week. It's what's going on with the bombing of Iran and the repercussions of that, and what is going on involving the SAVE Act and via the stolen election, election integrity problem, including the investigations of the 2020 election that are not a lot of people are not covering. So that's one of the things I like to cover as well over here. There's been several findings in the last couple of weeks. John Soloman is starting to dribble out the information that he said Tulsi Gabbard would expose to us all any day now. He seems to be in the loop a little bit more than a lot of us. That's one of the reasons I listen to John Soloman. He's obviously got the inside track to a lot of information, like a couple of other great news reporters out there. So we'll play a little bit of John Soloman here in a little bit. I know you know about the election interference that John Soloman has talked about over the last couple of weeks involving other countries, manipulating the machines and things. And we thought it was just a couple of countries. And now we're finding out even more countries, as of yesterday's report, more countries involved. Even one of the ones that we've been funding with their war for the last 6-8 years, the Ukraine war. But we'll get into that here directly. First off, let's get into the former FBI agent from the Mueller investigation has blown the whistleblower on the deep state orchestrated a coup against President Trump, which we knew this, but he now got somebody telling on each other. Using illegal spies and lies to interfere in the 2016 election, undermine his presidency, while $30 million in taxpayer dollars were wasted on a hoax to frame him for the Russia collusion hoax. Crazy stuff, folks. We now know for a fact, which we've known for a fact for a while, but more and more people are coming in because they're being interrogated and they know they're going to be on the chopping block if they don't tell off on the people above them.
Now, new reporting out today, of all things, proves that the swampy deep state in Washington, D.C. and their whole Get Trump agenda, and FBI agent who was assigned to the 2-year Mueller investigation at the time has emerged as a brand new whistleblower. Took your time enough, I think, making bombshell allegations involving political bias, believe it or not, and misconduct to the extent of decorating the office walls with anti-Trump cartoons, in case there weren't any other clues. More allegations include that the Mueller team was abusing, listen to this, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA court, to target President Trump's campaign advisors, and they lied to the FISA courts again and again so they could spy on them. And according to official interview documents, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, a notorious Trump hater, listen to this, referred to President Trump in a derogatory manner. Surprise, surprise. The investigation cost $30 million American taxpayer dollars. And isn't that amazing? Lots and lots of money with no evidence of Russia collusion found. Isn't that shocking? But I know the Democrat Party likes to say, oh, no, he had a deputy assistant travel advisor who once went to Moscow. Or
This actually has a lot to do with the 2016 election interference that they caused. There was election interference. There was election rigging. They tried to steal the election from him in 2016, but they didn't really prepare like they needed to because they didn't realize that he was going to win the popular vote, or he was going to win out overall against Hillary Clinton. But as goes, when they realized that they couldn't beat him on a popularity contest or by fighting him Democrat versus Republican, policy versus policy, they knew that they had to get rid of him so he couldn't catch a second term. So from the minute, I'm guessing, he got in 2016, they wanted him out, and by God, they weren't going to let him win the 2020 no matter what. They worked 4 years maliciously every day, I'm sure, to plan, organize, and deceive the American people out of their right to vote, out of their ability to vote and their vote be counted because of all these election shenanigans. And don't think that the FBI, the CIA, all the three-lettered agency, deep state actors didn't look the other way when it comes to election problems. Bill Barr, Mike Pompeo, they see nothing. All of that had to be organized. You can't tell me that the entire three-lettered agency, every person from every department in the government, refused to look into election problems in 2020 because they didn't have the time or there was nothing to see here. They all were in on it, folks, and a lot of these people are still working for the government. I call them deep staters, the ones that are just like a mole. They're in the hole. They're in there. Can't get them out. But more than that, we've got a lot to learn about different ways they steal elections. And we think we've learned it all about the machines doing different things. But now we're finding out, even here in Texas, that they're using fractal voting because we're still using machines. I don't know why we're still using machines here in Texas if the votes can be manipulated whatsoever. But I do have a breaking story for you here in a minute. But first, we're going to get into some John Soloman. Another breaking story. It says, breaking news. John Soloman drops another bomb while Barack Obama was falsifying intelligence in an effort to overthrow the United States government in 2016. Not only did Ukraine, a foreign power, interfere in the 2016 presidential election on behalf of Hillary Clinton, but the Democratic National Convention, the DNC, also asked Ukraine to help topple the United States government on her behalf. Dang. Additionally, the Trump administration obtained intercepted intelligence confirming the Ukraine officials were attempting to overthrow the United States during the 2024 presidential election on behalf of Joe Biden. All the expense, actually it would have been for Kamala, all the expense at the expense of the American taxpayer. DNI Tulsi Gabbard has had it for months and is waiting for the right time to drop the bomb, and it's coming. This information is coming out. I believe Space Force collects all the information from all the satellite feeds, from all this internet signal, all the chatter, all the literally the internet signals that are bouncing from one country to another on election day by the thousands. I'm sure all that stuff was absolutely recorded. Why wouldn't it be? I think that's the stuff they were looking for when they raided Mar-a-Lago. Crossfire Hurricane stuff is the stuff that proved that not only did our government try to work Trump over, spy on him, lie to him, put his people in jail, but they also continuously worked on one hoax after propaganda story after propaganda story until they couldn't beat him with the lies, and so they decided they had to beat him at the ballot box, and so they stole the 2020 election. We know how they done it, folks, but we're finding out more ways that they're doing it that needs to be stopped. We need to get rid of these effing machines right now. From the stuff I'm going to read to you here directly, not good.
Scores of raw intelligence reports that show Chinese meddling in the American election, and there's one report raising concern that Ukraine was engaged in a plot to do something bad in the 2024 election to help Joe Biden. I want to repeat that. There is intercepted intelligence that the Trump administration has had for many, many months, in which it is suggested by Ukrainian officials that they're going to try to help Joe Biden win the election using American.
Dang. There we go. A little more John Soloman. Oh, let me back up.
By a member of the Ukraine.
Oh, got to do it big.
By a member of the Ukrainian parliament. Let's talk about the tape recording. Evidence.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah, we don't know much about it because it's floating around Ukraine. But we do know the general prosecutor of Ukraine, our equivalent of the attorney general, came on our show this morning and said the following: there's enough evidence for me to open up a criminal investigation into the illicit effort by a Ukrainian to try to influence the United States election in favor of Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. That's a profound statement coming from the top law enforcement official of Ukraine. Why is it important? There's a court in Ukraine that's already concluded that Ukrainian officials leaked Paul Manafort's financial records to try to sway the U.S. election. You haven't heard anything about that in the American press, but that ruling occurred recently. Then a parliamentary member comes out and says, I have a tape of these law enforcement officials saying they did it specifically to help Hillary Clinton. That becomes the foundation of the Ukrainian investigation.
And you have talked to people that have heard this tape, correct?
Well, the prosecutor himself has heard the tape and said it was important enough, good enough evidence to warrant opening the investigation. So the tape, the court ruling, the top prosecutor in Ukraine says there was a foreign power.
Two separate issues here. Number one,
yes,
did Ukrainian officials offered us evidence that, in fact, they were involved in election interference in 2016 to help Hillary Clinton's campaign? But I didn't see anybody in the media pursue the interference story, and I thought they cared about interference, but obviously only if it's Russian interference in Trump, because we know they don't care about the dirty Russian dossier.
That's right. Keep in mind that just a few months ago, Sean, we reported on your show and Inside the Hill that Ukraine's embassy in Washington confirmed on the record that back in 2016, the Democratic National Committee, trying to help Hillary Clinton get elected, asked the Ukraine embassy to help interfere in the election by doing two things: dig up dirt on Paul Manafort and have Ukraine's president make a kerfuffle here in Washington about Manafort and Trump when he came to visit. Now, the Ukrainians say they rebuffed that attempt, but Hillary Clinton's campaign, the DNC, made that request, according to the Ukraine embassy in Washington.
By a member.
Dang. Well, it's not just a story now. It is absolutely confirmed. Absolutely confirmed. Dang. Ukraine was in on it. Venezuela was in on it. I'm guessing Iranian finances were in on it. I think Joe Biden elicited every country in the world. China was in on it. Every country in the world to do what they could to subvert the will of our elections, whether it be creating fake IDs the Chinese were doing, putting them in shipping containers, shipping them over here, fake IDs so people could be registered to vote that were not citizens, not by the hundreds, but by the thousands. Venezuelan Dominion voting machines that use fractal voting when everybody is one single person. Everybody is there's no way you are 1 point something of a person or point something of a person. Every number should count as a whole number, not a fraction. And we found out many times, including in this Texas race here that just happened, that fractal voting is still happening via the machines. Fractal voting should not exist. There should not be a decimal when you're involving counting numbers that all start of denominations of 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. You can do that for a million years. You're never going to get to a point something because it's whole numbers the entire way. Nobody is a fraction of a number. Just a fact, folks. That really bothers me that you do all you can about election integrity and things, and they duplicate ballots. They use fractal voting because the machines can manipulate in ways that people don't realize. People changing their address by one number, the machine don't catch it, and you get to vote 6 times. Just ridiculous crap like that in some states. It's still happening, folks. We've got to fight really hard to win our elections and keep us in control.
There are scores of raw intelligence reports that show Chinese meddling in the American election, and there's one report raising concern that Ukraine was engaged in a plot to do something bad in the 2024 election to help Joe Biden. I want to repeat that. There is intercepted intelligence that the Trump administration has had for.
There's no doubt about it. Intercepted intelligence. We know for a fact several of the bad actors that were involved in helping Biden, trying to get rid of Trump, trying to keep Trump out, trying to prevent Trump from being reelected. What a damn shame. Now, folks, there is a Texan here. His name is Doc Pete Chambers. I met the guy a couple times. He's an old cowboy. He's actually not, he's from Waco. But I think he lost his last previous election. But let me tell you this. I believe the man is speaking honestly when he has been watching the audit center, not the audit center, the vote tallying center in Texas here during the whole Texas early voting. Because you can watch it day by day through the Secretary of State's website, secretaryofstate.gov. During the election cycle, you can actually see, literally look and see how many votes are being tabulated during the whole early voting season. And this guy says, and now we've got a couple other confirmations of this, say that some screwy stuff happened here in Texas, around San Antonio. We're talking about Bexar County, Behar, however you want to call it. But I want to read you this. Doc Pete Chambers was a representative here for Texas in the House in Texas for a lot of years. The man has done several different jobs here in Texas, and I honestly believe if he says, I've seen some screwy crap, and now we got confirmation of it, I have no reason to doubt it. And this scares the crap out of me because this is the problem with states like Texas think they're immune because we're a super red state. We're still using machines here. We're still using machines to count the votes. We use paper to make our vote, and we use machines to count the vote. That's the problem, folks. It says breaking national security issue: 66,146 GOP ballots deleted during Texas early voting. 87,000 voters disappeared, and reappeared in the state records. So why were they fading in and fading out? That don't even make any sense. It says the Corn and Paxton margin is only 26,000. Someone inside the system is picking our nominees. Don't certify. Audit no. This is too big not to notice. Audit now. This is too big not to notice. Complacency will end our constitutional republic. What exactly happened? Well, they start doing the math and they start realizing some fractal crap start happening. So your vote disappeared during the early voting. Thousands of Texas ballots vanished from the official state records, then reappeared, then vanished again. In both parties, folks. This isn't one side or the other pointing the finger. This is both parties. The same thing happens. So somebody is controlling the levers of not just the Republican primary, but the Democrat primary. It says in both parties, the data proves someone inside the system is manipulating who wins the primaries. Who needs to answer? We need answers for this before November. The problem is simply in the numbers. It says Republican primaries 87,000 plus voters appeared, disappeared, and then reappeared in the state records. 66,000 ballots completely deleted from the final count. 35,000 ballots added to the people who had already voted. 35,000 extra ballots added to people who had already voted. That's where they were duplicate counting the votes. And I'll show you that on the next slide. It says only 26,000 votes separated Corn and Paxton, but 66,000 ballots disappeared. Democratic primary voters disappeared, 37,000, and then reappeared. 10,000 ballots completely deleted from final count. This is the Democrat stuff. 35,000 extra ballots added to people who had already voted, meaning they duplicated votes. 144,000 votes separate Senate candidates. This is between Jasmine Crockett and the Tellerico guy. It says, but 10,000 ballots just completely vanished after the total. Why this matters? These numbers are bigger than the margins in the race. This affects who appears on your ballot in November. Both parties were hit. This isn't partisan. It's corruption. Sure, it's partisan. 3 simple rules they broke. Rule number 1 you're supposed to help one team and hurt the other. That is partisan. That's exactly what's happening. They put their own guy in there. That's the plan. They want to put the weaker, the Republicans, in there to fight against the stronger of the Democrats, or the most known of the Democrats out there. They're giving us our candidates by design without our choice. That's what's happening here. It says this affects who appears on the November ballot. Both parties were hit. Rule number 1. 3 rules. 3 rules they broke. Rule number 1 numbers should never go backwards. What should happen? Vote totals only go up and down, up as more people vote, never down. What actually happened on February 17th? The vote count went down 7 different times. Translation: ballots were deleted in real time during the vote. 1 person, 1 ballot. What happens when your voter ID gets 1 ballot recorded? What should happen? Your voter ID gets 1 ballot recorded. What actually happens? 1,549 Republican voters and 54 Democrat voters had multiple ballots counted. Translation: the system is stacked with extra votes on real people. I guess they're just duplicating. Number 3, your ballot stays counted. What should happen once your ballot stays in the record? What actually happened? 66,000 Republicans and 10,000 Democrat voters' records completely vanished by the end. Translation: the real votes were actually erased. This isn't a theory. This is a fact. How could this happen? This is actually mathematically impossible unless someone is inside the system changing the record in real time, supporting the fact. Texas Secretary of State changed the data file format multiple times during the early voting, made access intermittent exactly when researchers were watching. So is the Secretary of State here in Texas screwing with us? Or is the Secretary of State slipping because somebody's got their hands on a computer that's manipulating the system? We're going to have to dig into that. It says, the supporting fact that the Secretary of State changed the data file format multiple times during the early voting. Maybe that was to hide something? Or was that to keep people from getting in the system, from hacking the system? Maybe we got to ask the Secretary of State some questions. There needs to be a full investigation if we are now squabbling over is it going to be Paxton or Cornyn when we know damn well that Paxton probably got about 60 or 70% of the vote. And the black guy that jumped in, whatever his name is, West, whatever his name is, he shouldn't have even got in at all. I think he was a deep state subversion. Whoever controls our elections controls trillions in state and federal budgets. This is a national security emergency. Foreign adversaries, cartels, corporate interests, anyone with resources to breach our system can now pick our leaders. President Trump, AG Bondi, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, we need to treat this like a cyber attack and snuff it out, deal with it. Says thank you to Unite for Freedom at Unite for Freedom for your deep dive into this national security issue. If you want to go into more in depth into this, there's like a three-parter of this story. I was just giving you the heads up of what they know so far. But this is screwy, folks. What we're finding out is somebody is manipulating the primary elections where people look for stolen elections during big elections. They don't think of the primary as a big election. It says, heads up. Somebody's telling Ken Paxton, heads up. On these ballots deletion numbers from the Secretary of State's data, 66,000 were gone. Your margin was only 26,000. Did the Secretary of State sabotage Ken Paxton? Is that what we're finding out? Secretary of State actually controls too much power when it comes to elections. There needs to be a board of elected people to help the Secretary of State deal with elections. So election fraud in Texas is obvious. Notice how there are multiple voters from the same people. Notice how there are non-integers voter IDs here in the Texas primary. Notice how the addresses is incremented, just barely changed. Please share this out. Now what is happening is, folks, is they are manipulating computers to have Dennis Jones vote 6 or 7 times by changing his address by 1 digit. That's what's really going on, folks. Somebody is hacking the system in real time. That's what's going on. Or they're inserting something that hacks the system. Or maybe the minion voting machines and these Smartmatic voting machines already have this applied. They just got somebody on the outside going clickety click, click, click. It's called remote access, folks. Now, what we have found out about this Texas thing is that when they tried to do the math on this, they're realizing that you're not coming, when they're counting these votes for the Democrats and the Republicans and the numbers missing and stuff, they're finding out there's a fractal vote. There isn't an actual number of voters in Texas that you can actually see the number. The number is a point something. There's no reason to have a 12 million point something, 000 point something. There's no reason for that, folks. If they are having fractal numbers show up in these voting machines, it tells you they're skimming the vote, even partial votes or percentages of votes. We've seen it before. We got to get these damn machines out. That's just the facts, folks. And speaking of voting, the SAVE Act did pass in the Senate the other day. Just procedural, but for it to get to a 60 vote threshold to pass, we're going to have to do the filibuster thing, and we're still holding out, waiting on Jonathan. But I will tell you this, John Fetterman talks a good game. A little bit off topic, but John Fetterman talks like a Republican, talks like a middle-of-the-road kind of guy. But I shit you not, every time John Fetterman says, "Oh, I agree with both sides. I'm somewhere in the middle. I agree with the SAVE Act, all but a few little provisions. I think I could vote for that." Well, once again, John Fetterman has proved to be a pretty good con man, because not only did this man say he would vote for the SAVE Act, but he turned right around and did not vote for the SAVE Act. He's another fraud. At least he pretends to be middle of the road. That way nobody hates him. Well, on the real, he votes hardcore Democrat every time. So no more videos about what a great job John Fetterman did, because he talks like a Republican today. We're over that, folks. But I have faith, whether it be through executive order or passing the SAVE Act, one way or another, we're going to fix this problem. But more than that, we need to get, just as much as we need the voter ID and the verified citizenship, we need to get rid of the machines 100%. 100%. So I got for you today, folks. Hopefully everybody enjoyed. Like, subscribe, and share. Even though it's not all peachy news, it's still stuff you got to know. Got to know what's going on out there. Keep your head on a swivel. Everybody have a great day.